This story's called Me, Me, Me. Or maybe that should be Me, Me, Me? So I saw a guy on the bus who looked uncannily like me. Really exactly like me, in fact. I was kind of freaked out. What do you do in that situation? I think if I'd been in a better place mentally, or even just a bit more in the habit of talking to people, I would have approached the guy, remarked on the bizarre extent of the resemblance, maybe asked a few friendly questions. But I happened to be sitting at the back of the bus and he was near the middle and hadn't noticed me, and it was easier just to stay put, keep my head down and stare at him as he got off by the town hall. Then I saw a few more about, guys who looked exactly like me, I mean. One passed me in the street and I noticed him first because of his extraordinarily flamboyant clothing. Purple bell-bottoms and a tight yellow v-neck, plus an orangish tie-dyed headband and a large dandelion behind one ear. He was on the phone and seemed irritated. Another one I found in the supermarket, looking through the ready meals section and dressed mercifully in a fairly standard suit. Then there were the two in the bar, deep in conversation over beers. I didn't even notice what they were wearing, I just quietly left. I did some research and found there's a company in South Korea that's mass producing me now. I won't deny I was a bit perturbed upon making this discovery, but, well, I'm a fairly chill guy and I didn't have much get up and go back then. And anyway, what can you do? Of course I felt differently after my on-again, off-again girlfriend started dating one of them, although in her defence we were very definitely off again at that point. And then my acquiescence was tested yet further when I was sacked from my soul-destroying IT job and found out a few weeks later that they'd employed one in my place. And when, not long after that, my parents arranged to go on a family holiday with one of them, well, that really was the last straw then. I wrote a furious email to that company in South Korea. I didn't get a reply. To be honest, I can quite understand in retrospect, I was rather rude. I wouldn't have replied to such an email either. For a while then, I had these forlorn fantasies of leading the many-me's, MLK style, on a great trip to Seoul to protest outside the company's HQ. It was never going to happen. How we would raise the money to get us all out there was one question. But then also the others didn't particularly show signs of being discontented in the lives they were living. So instead I just sort of moped about. I was moping down by the quay on one occasion, and one of them jogged right past me. He was kitted out in all that proper jogging gear, and he looked in great shape. I suppose I got a bit of a buzz from that, seeing myself looking so trim. So I called after him. Turned out he was serious about football. Serious in a way I had never been, despite my love of the game. I mean, he was a pro, had made it as far as the 3rd division, was playing centre mid for a local club that was pushing for promotion. I'd always played centre mid too. Out of interest, I went along to one of his games. He absolutely bossed it, man. I went along to another, then another. Soon I was in with the ultras, happily screaming abuse at opposition players. It was around then that I started receiving benefits on mental health grounds, which meant I didn't have the worry of finding work as soon as possible. So yeah, a space sort of opened up in my life and I filled it with, well, with me, I guess. I mean, I got interested in what all these other me's were up to, didn't I? I started asking them whenever I saw them. There was a me, another of the first ones I approached, who was doing his PhD in entomology. I didn't even know what entomology was. The study of insects, apparently. This guy could talk for hours about how much we have to learn from termites. Then there was a paramedic me, who, as he liked to emphasise and repeat a little more than was perhaps strictly necessary, saved lives day in, day out. Though I have to say he had an alarming habit of getting drunk whenever off duty, which I think explained, in part, that rather boastful streak. I tracked down that flamboyantly dressed me. It wasn't too difficult. He was running a struggling 60s-themed cafe called Across the Universe. Part of the deal there was you were only allowed in with flowers in your hair. I admired how he stuck with this policy, even though it cost him much needed business. Then there was an accountant me who, in his free time, worked with this group disrupting illegal fox hunts at country estates. You should have seen him, charging down gun-toting, horse-riding plutocrats, armed with nothing but a camera phone. When I asked him why he was an accountant of all things, he said, "What can I say? I love numbers. It's like doing Sudoku puzzles for a living." And that made a lot of sense to me. Who doesn't love a good Sudoku puzzle? Oh, and there was an Uber driver me who also did early morning shifts at a bakery. He was a single dad, you see, struggling to provide for his 3 kids, who were simply the sweetest bunch you ever met, all doing so well at school, and so supportive of their dad. Sometimes the oldest one, and she was only 15, would take the keys for the bakery and go and do that early shift there in his place. She looked a bit like me too. And yeah, there was a tour guide me, and he was rubbish, absolutely rubbish, I kid you not. I went on one of his tours of the town centre, and he had about half his facts wrong, and hardly told any of the great stories about the plague years and the Civil War and all that. Wouldn't have got away with it if the other members of the tour group hadn't all been clueless foreigners. I approached him about this after, and he was initially quite angry and defensive. But then he changed tone, almost broke down in fact, and said it wasn't his bag at all, local history. He just couldn't get a proper job. I felt for the guy. Took him to the pub, started telling him some of the ghost stories about that old hospital building that's now an upmarket apartment complex. We've kind of made a regular thing of it since then. We'll meet up once or twice a week, and I'll try and convey some good bits of local folklore or trivia to him. He thinks I have it all in my head, but truth be told, I often do a bit of research in advance. And you know, I've always been an early riser, so I've also taken to sometimes helping out with that bakery shift for the Uber driver me, or sometimes even, now that I've got the hang of it, just doing it myself. I mean, when it's the daughter who turns up, I of course tell her to go home, get a bit more shut-eye before school. And from the bakery, it seems natural enough to go on to Across the Universe with a batch of fresh rolls and pastries, which have, I think, started drawing a few more brunch customers, who thankfully seem more up for the flowers in your hair thing than the after-work crowd. Meanwhile, I've been introduced to so much great hippie music through that place. Oh my god, Tim Buckley's second album, Goodbye and Hello, 1967. If you don't know it already, do yourself a favour, give it a listen. I tell you, they knew how to make music in those days. I'm also trying to help the paramedic me get off the bottle. Yeah, feels like that should be a priority. I've been trying various things, took him to a bunch of football games, an entomology conference, and on a couple of those outings with the fox hunt disrupting group. The last of these is the biggest winner so far, appeals to the hero in him, I suppose. And he and the accountant me have hit it off pretty well. In fact, the paramedic me is also into his Sudoku, and in the back of the minibus on the way back from a disruption last weekend, I had the two of them race to see who could finish 5 of the things first. I swear, accountant me had it by only a matter of seconds in the end. I recently bumped into my old girlfriend, and the me she effectively left me for. We ended up having dinner together, the 3 of us, and by the end, I'd realised he's probably a better fit for her. Certainly he's a decent enough chap. At times it was quite touching seeing the way they were together. There was a lightness between them that maybe my poor mental health had made impossible with me. Perhaps seeking some comfort, I went to visit my parents the next day, and they were really sweet, and I think a bit less clingy and passive-aggressive than they've been at times in the past. It appears that, serendipitously, the shamefully small amount of time I give them, and the similarly small amounts of time various other me's give them, add up to about the level of contact with their son that they want. They asked about my search for a new job. I laughed, told them I'm fucking crazy, thank God, no work for me. And anyway, my benefits are supplemented by occasional tips I'm getting as business picks up at Across the Universe. Yeah, Mum didn't appreciate the curse word, or the criminally undeclared income for that matter, but what can you do? I found myself writing another email to South Korea the other day, this one essentially expressing my gratitude. It's amazing how transformative their work has been in my life. I'm meeting new me's all the time, getting to know them, lending a hand where I can, and I find I enjoy that, and it almost invariably leads to a hand being lent in return sooner or later. And now occasionally I'm even doing this with non-me's. Didn't get a response to that email either, but writing it felt like an important milestone for me. I'm a lot happier than I was before.